This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
We can be.
We must be the first generation
to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice
and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone. Everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere
lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
where no one
wakes in the morning
Asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world
Where no child has to die of
Diseases we know how to cure.
And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
where everyone
Goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
To thrive and be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is headed back.
we will live in a world
where all people can get clean water.
and proper toilets
At home,
At school.
and at work.
We will live in a world where there's sustainable energy for everyone.
heat,
Light
and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We'll live in a world where economies prosper.
a new wealth.
leads to decent jobs,
For everyone.
and we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure
And our
best innovations.
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
Are defeated.
inside our countries and between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
What we consume.
Planet where we put back
What we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back from climate change.
where we restore
and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore
and protect
Life on land,
The forests.
Animals,
the earth itself.
With peace between and inside countries.
where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
with everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people.
Work together.
Partnerships of all kinds.
to make these goals
a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
For sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Now, in this show, we take you around the world, you visit amazing places, and meet very interesting people. We also talk about topics and issues that impact the global community. Now, tonight is a special show because this month is United Nations Month. And it's going to be a big topic because we're going to be talking about the different activities of the UN this month. We're going to talk about Artists for Peace. And of course, we're going to talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Very important framework produced by 193 member states of the UN in collaboration with the global civil society to bring out a roadmap to ensure the existence of our species and the continuity of our civilization moving forward in the face of such tremendous challenges today and in the future. And joining us to talk about the UN month and SDGs and of course Artists for Peace is someone who is a friend of Global Village and a friend of the Global News Network. She's been on the show many times. None other than Cecile Guidote Alvarez, Director, Earth Savers, UNESCO Artists for Peace. Yes. Ms. Alvarez, welcome to Global Village again.
Thank you for having us. We're really very glad to be part of your UN Observance Month because as we talk of the SDGs, it's really a covenant that all countries have signed.
Yes.
And it's such an important issue to be fulfilled by everybody by 2030. It's really the expanded Millennium Development Goals.
Absolutely. And, we make it a point to feature this once a year, primarily before your attendance of the Conference of Parties, United Nations Climate Change Conference.
In Poland this year.
In Poland this year, which is really going to be a very massive, very important summit.
Yes, it's so important because nakikita naman lahat ng mga hagupit ng climate change, it's so disastrous. It's becoming more intense. It's galloping.
Absolutely.
And there's so much destruction and loss of lives.
Yes.
And the only way really is for all who agreed in Paris to fulfill their determined contributions to decarbonize, to cut carbon that is overheating the earth. We're now a hot house.
Absolutely.
They call us.
Ms. Alvarez, let's talk about your background first for those who are not familiar with Earth Savers, UNESCO Artists for Peace. What is this about, and how did you get involved in this advocacy of saving the planet?
Actually, I've been really involved in general in terms of theater for social change. That's why we founded PETA and was recognized with the Ramon Magsaysay Outstanding Asian Award. And then when we returned from exile, my husband got so involved with the environment, and he was really worried. Yeah.
He was really the first.
He was the first
Absolutely.
to call attention on the need to respond to climate change catastrophes, and they thought he was crazy at first. And he said he knew that in PETA we were doing this arts communication and conscientizing people. And he said, can you focus on the environment? Because I can do all of the best laws, but if people don't understand it, they're not aware of it, they are not disciplined to undertake it, and government doesn't fulfill its obligations, then all the laws will be worthless.
Absolutely.
So that's why Earth Savers was born. And then we thought that if we specialize on showing the capacity of so-called damaged human beings, meaning to say those with disabilities, those disadvantaged, like out of school and indigenous youth, if we synergize them together and showcase a very cohesive artistic presentation appealing to stop violence against mankind and Mother Earth, then it would really help awareness and pushing for action.
Absolutely, and very powerful medium arts.
Yeah.
Because it hits the heart. So what better way to motivate
and it's
people?
Instant.
It's instant, and it's feelings. You're doing feelings, and people can connect with the issue.
You're motivated to do something when you empathize about a certain condition.
Absolutely, it arouses passion in people in a cause.
Yes,
Ms. Alvarez, before we jump into that, let's talk about UN Month.
Yes.
This month, very important, UN Month, and also the SDGs.
Yeah, because the UN more or less observes it globally. They have the UN Week, generally from the 16th to the 24th. The 16th is used as a day for fighting poverty, and the SDGs really is its overarching goal is to eradicate poverty.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the background of the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of people, when they hear this, it's something, it sounds very technical and very complicated. But what is really the background of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals? And there's 17, and it covers a wide range of issues like poverty, hunger, health, equality, environment and social justice, to name a few.
Health, everything.
Yes.
But there's something very important in the SDGs, partnerships. Because, as you know, we're a global village.
Like my show.
Like your show. And certainly you cannot accomplish all the challenges, the responses to it, unless we hold hands together. Look at what happened now just in Indonesia. It's a very sad tsunami after the earthquake. And we ourselves suffered, Haiyan, where the world came together to assist, the refugees, the difficulties. And it's not just to assist, but what can we do to prevent further such destruction, such challenges to survival? So they thought of all the best minds were gathered, especially since there was the push for the Paris Agreement. Simultaneously, there was this more than 2 years of regional meetings to put together how are we going to solve the problems.
Identify the key areas.
And the important thing is to show the interconnectedness, because we have a problem sometimes of just having a fragmented look or a turf war kind of approach to problems. And here it's integrated, it's interdisciplinary, it's interconnected, and you know that if you want to fight poverty, you have to give food, you have to have a sustainable city, you have to protect the environment, you have to give jobs. If you want war to end, you have to really have justice and equality. So tuhog-tuhog yun. They're interconnected, and it's important that cooperation is the key to really realizing this dream.
Yes, and I think that's the big difference, because the basis really of the SDGs were the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which ended in 2015, no?
Yeah.
But they said the big difference between the two is that the MDGs focused on donor-recipient relationships, whereas, as you pointed out correctly,
it's
partnerships now.
Meaning to say, within a country, sama-sama, not just government, civil society, all other sectors, nobody is left alone. I mean, everybody is involved, everybody is, let's say, approached or given a better quality of life. You can't say those with handicap, you can just pity them or give token assistance. They have to be part and parcel of everything, from education to jobs.
Yes, and given the severity of the problems that we just talked about and enumerated some of them earlier, and especially with the environment, it really takes a collective approach, a collaboration, a synergy of active participants and stakeholders to address this. But Mrs. Alvarez?
And the UN is doing so many things, giving awards, doing a kind of review. In fact, because we feel that communications is a key, I would challenge almost any teacher now, if they can name the 17 SDGs, or even relate it to everyday life, how even as a young person, you can be involved. So we're doing a soap opera on the SDGs, so that it is fleshed out in actual conditions, in characters, in situations, in problems, alternative solutions. That's all part of it. Because
make them relate.
Yes,
make people be able to relate.
To relate to the condition, they have to relate to the character, and all characters must be involved, from the spiritual to the very material.
Yes. That's why, Mrs. Alvarez, that video that we showed prior to coming on was very inspiring. We saw all these big name Hollywood stars and from Britain and all that, and all really, coming out and in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it seems that, the arts has become a pillar, a main medium really for pushing this message, as you said, very important.
Definitely. We even before here, we showed you paintings done by persons with disabilities, but we call them handicapable on the SDGs. And you were there in Paris when we demonstrated this. People were even wanting to buy the paintings, and then in Bonn, it was stolen. So that shows you the impact of the visual representation of the SDGs, because it's very hard to connect. What do you mean by no to poverty? What do you mean by life underwater? For instance, in life underwater, we had already approached the Foreign Relations Committee, which ratifies, which is under Senator Legarda, and we told her the Earth Savers has been asking as a UNESCO Artist for Peace for the ratification of the Underwater Heritage Convention, the protection of this, because now more than ever we're knowing, wow, we're the center of the corals.
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
The coral triangle.
Absolutely.
It's important. The corals are important. It's the home for the fishes. We shouldn't destroy it. We're having the bloody. It's really
it's
bloody
the basis
because
of our marine environment.
Of the ocean is terrible.
Yes.
The plastic gyre, and we're among the most guilty.
I think we're number 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think number 1.
Yeah, we really have to attend to seeing the connectivity. And just, there was a news thing about somebody just throwing all of the garbage
it went viral on social media.
It went viral.
Yes.
You can't do this. And we're having a tsunami of garbage whenever we have the super typhoons.
Ms. Alvarez, how are the technocrats, are they embracing this arts approach? Because there is really a big gulf between the technocrats and those. For instance, I know for instance that in the COPs, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, that happens every year. I know that for a fact that your group is probably the only group that has some sort of arts culture initiative. With, I mean, it's all technocrats and the new guys.
Well, there's a new development, and of course you've been joining this since
And I'll
Paris.
be with you in Poland, yes.
In Poland, there is a new initiative called the Arts Planet. And there will be, hopefully, a component, we're in conversation with them, where we would have, for instance, you know, people don't realize the connection of war and climate change, but think of all the bombs detonated, and you have the worst tons of carbon,
the burning and
the oil, everything, the oil spills. I mean, they're connected, and we have a wonderful exhibition of paintings done by Nemi Miranda, which depicts the whole struggle of our heroic soldiers and hostages at Marawi with the Maute assault up to the victory.
Yes.
So we even have a play by Marilu Jacob on child warriors. And they're the greatest victims, the
Absolutely.
children.
It's really all interconnected
And
with war.
when you have war, you have poverty. So how can you have the SDG no to poverty if you have continuous war? And these catastrophes where you destroy not just homes, infrastructure, etc., and where even corruption is part and parcel of resolving the problem of poverty.
Ms. Alvarez, is the arts successful in piercing, let's say, policymakers, their attention, getting their attention of
slowly,
those in government?
Steadily. I think it's important to note that during the time of GMA as president, I served as PA on culture, and I was at NCCA. She was very open, and there was a cultural component in the medium development plan. In the entire development plan. It used to be an absent ingredient. It's stacked on, etc., but now it has to be understood as essential, particularly for communications, for lifelong learning, for motivating people to action, from bonding people together. And I'm glad that when we held the International Peace Movement here, globally launched by UNESCO, we received a message from President Duterte himself. Of course, the UNESCO Director General Azoulay gave it its full support. And even OPAP, which is the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, assisted this, besides at the EAC, the Emilio Aguinaldo College, and the Senate.
Very good.
The Senate spouses assisted so that a Manila Declaration has been forged out of it, which will be presented to the UNESCO General Conference. And we hope that if there was a Paris Agreement on
might be,
environment, the Manila Declaration will push.
Absolutely.
Okay, the agreement on how culture can be dynamically applied as a force for education.
So, Ms. Alvarez, we'll push on that in the next topic, next segment, and we'll be joined by Maricar Book, and she's the UN Youth Advisory Board member, and she has a wonderful voice, and she sings and she promotes all these advocacies.
Yeah, she's one of our blind singers in the UNESCO
Artists for Peace.
Artists for Peace in the Earth Savers.
Okay. Guys, we have pause for a break. When we come back, more of UN Month, Artists for Peace, and SDGs when we return.
The United Nations is an organization with goals of peace and sustainable development around the world. Their mission is huge, but we're breaking it down in 2 minutes. 17 sustainable development goals. Let's get to them, cause the more you know. Look, in some corners of the world today, people are living on $1 a day. Hey, that's not how it ought to be. So go 1, eliminate poverty, and go 2, root out hunger across the globe. There's 800 million people hungry if you want to know. Number 3 is health and well-being, and getting people the health care that they need in. Learning in school are the hard to go for. Education opens up minds and doors. Goal number 5 is empower girls and women so they can have the same rights that men are given. Number 6, people need water that's clean. Poor sanitation can spread disease. Carbon-free energy is goal number 7, and how to achieve it is a question that's pressing. But if we put our minds together and work hard, we can find a solution, I'm guessing. 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to lie in it. 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to lie in it. Now imagine that you work all day for no pay. Economic growth and decent work is goal 8. Goal number 9 is to foster innovation in infrastructure and industrialization. Goal number 10, inequality reduction. 11 is sustainable city construction. 12, well, that's sustainable consumption. So what we use matches up with production. Goal 13 calls for urgent action to combat climate change, cause we know it's happening. 14, protect life under seas. 15, protect life on land. Goal 16 is for peace and justice. All over the planet, they're in high demand. And the final goal, number 17, is the critical factor, the heart of the machine. It's the strength in the way we achieve these goals of sustainable development around the globe. Yo, 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Kunanan. Tonight's topic is UN Month, Artists for Peace, and SDGs, that's Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Joining me still is Cecil Godol Alvarez, Director of Earth Savers UNESCO Artists for Peace. And joining her is Maricar Book, and she's a UN Youth Advisory Board member representing persons with disabilities.
Yes.
Okay, but before we introduce Maricar to all of you, let's talk about that very nice video, Mrs. Alvarez. I mean, just another example of how musicians...
A different approach, this time for the millennials by using rap. So there are many genres and many kinds of disciplines that can be approached. I mentioned we're doing a soap opera. You can have music compositions, poetry, comics, all kinds of ways to reach the different targets.
And Maricar has her own way of also reaching out to target audience and stirring up passion and emotion and getting people to act on this issue.
Maricar is blind, but she's able to touch hearts and minds, whether you have a disability or whether you're able-bodied.
Maricar, welcome to the show, and let's talk about itong position mo. You are UN Youth Advisory Board member. How did you get involved dito sa UN Youth Advisory Board?
Yes, first of all, good evening to all the viewers of Global Village, and to be a member of Youth Advisory Board of United Nations is truly a privilege for us. Kasi napakahirap po. We've been through lots of lots of interviews, lots of essays to do, recommendations from agencies who catered United Nations, and God willing, I'm one of those 15 members.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your duties as board member?
Of course, to first and foremost is to extend the exposure or the involvement and the engagement of youth regarding formulation of United Nations Development Assistance framework, and also it is our duty to provide youth lens about our concerns, how we can be productive in our society. Yes.
How are you able to reach out to your target audience? Ikaw mismo.
I'm blessed to be a part of Earth Savers UNESCO Artists for Peace because through arts, because there are lots of words that maybe hindi natin magagamit para magising yung mga tao. But through arts, pwede natin sabihin sa kanila what can be the effect of social discrimination, yung social stigma na, those PWDs pala, hindi lang dapat sa loob ng bahay, like that. That if you will give us the opportunity, talagang yung skills and abilities po ng mga persons with disabilities, matatakpan na yung obvious na physical disability ng tao.
Pero ayon ni Mrs. Alvarez, yung persons with disability, handy-capable.
Yes.
Yung tawag
And
natin
she
sa'yo.
is handy-capable. You won't believe it. She is a graduate of BSE.
Wow.
She's a teacher, major in dance, because she was empowered in the Earth Savers, not because you're blind, you're blind, you get integrated, she's able to do acrobatics, she's able to dance, she dances the tinikling.
Wow, that's,
she
that's incredible.
has to act, So,
brava.
it shows that's part of the SDGs. If you give equal opportunity for education, if you provide lifelong learning for persons with disabilities, they can be transformed into handicapables.
And our disabilities,
very inspiring.
Our disabilities may turn into possibilities.
Yeah.
That's
very,
my
very
favorite
nice.
quotation.
Okay, ulit, can you say it again, louder?
Our disabilities can turn into possibilities.
Very nice. Glass half full. Always glass half full. So, Maricor, where has your job, this position of yours taken you? Where have you performed? In which venues? Which events?
Even before she was a UN advisory board, she's
even
been
before.
to Paris, she's been to
and
Korea.
Japan.
Wow.
With the Earth Savers.
Yes.
Very nice, very nice.
Na parang masasabi ko na siguro if I don't have this type of disability, siguro kung di ako blind, siguro gala lang ako, nasa Philippines lang ako, I'm not able to go to other countries. Kaya parang sa mga may persons with disabilities, don't lose hope kasi parang may kapalit yun eh.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh. How does it make you feel, Maricor, that you're able to contribute really in a big way to this cause that all of us are so engaged in? We're all fighting, all these problems now that are really which are summarized by the SDGs, no? What is your feeling that you can really contribute in a big way to this?
Sobra pong nakakatuwa kasi hindi po lahat ng tao nagkakaroon ng chance na ganito, na magkaroon ng boses para maging involved dun sa mga problems, sa mga issues, or how to resolve those problems and issues. Hindi lang yung kung ano yung mga problems and issues, yung mismong paghahanap ng solusyon regarding doon. And napapakita din po namin na hindi hadlang yung disability namin. If we have the opportunity, pag nabigyan kami ng pagkakataon, hindi po namin sasayangin.
And that's what I mean, Mrs. Alvarez.
This is where the empowerment
Absolutely.
process goes. If you reach out to them with this kind of lifelong learning, they get transformed. They're like butterflies out of a cocoon.
And I think it's both ways, because even the people who watch them perform, see them involved in this, will also say, hey, if they're into this and so involved, why not?
They are conscientized.
Absolutely. Why shouldn't we be?
Yeah.
Diba? And understand that she's a very talented singer. And,
she is.
And and our main topic tonight, one of the main topics is peace.
Yeah.
Artists for Peace.
They performed as UNESCO Artists for Peace with other UNESCO Artists for Peace when we had the international peace movement, not by force, but by art. And this was really endorsed by UNESCO, Director General Azoulay. It was approved even before by DG Bokova. And we were designated UNESCO Artists for Peace by DG Matsuura. And this is the beauty of this organization of the UN, continuity. You know, when we were selected by Mr. Matsuura, it could have ended when he was gone, but it was continued and even really assisted and pushed by the subsequent Director Generals. Yes. And that's a wonderful kind of governance framework to be followed, hopefully in countries, because what happens is you've developed a good program, then it's removed by somebody else who has taken over. There should be continuity and innovation.
Absolutely, and you know, the world and even us in the Philippines, we're faced with so many issues where peace is elusive, and through the arts, you know, if a way can be found to bring people together through the arts, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think Maricor has prepared a song for us.
Buddy, you should know that the festival was composed of artists from claimant countries of the conflicted sea. So even if they're supposed to be, you know, girian against China, Vietnam, Korea, or
They're
Japan.
able to bond with one another. Yes,
Sama-sama, they were all together and they bonded.
Were you able to perform, Maricor, during that?
Yes, together with other UNESCO Artists for Peace.
Yeah, like the Brent's Band.
Yes.
You know that they gifted them?
They gave us instrument.
And I think you prepared a song for us now to talk, a special song about peace, specifically because we're talking about Artists for Peace. And Maricor, I will give you the floor for a short a cappella by Maricor book.
I'm a child of war. I lost my sight, my innocence and happiness I've known. When can you feel my pain? When will concern begin? When will the killings come to end? We're too young to learn to hate, but we are learning from the wars our fathers make. Let's pray together that war will be over. Please stop the violence and live in peace. Let's pray together. Lord, heal our land. Let's pray together for peace. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Bravo, bravo. Very good, Maricor. Very good. So, yes, through the words, very poignant, very strong, very stirring.
Strong. You know, we performed this in so many places and people cry. You know that it hit the spot.
Absolutely. And she sang the a cappella, I can imagine, but with,
when we
with
have
a
the
full complement of
instruments,
music and all that.
The guitarist is blind. The violinist is blind, the bajo player is blind.
I mean, she sang it so beautifully a cappella, but with accompaniment, then
blind,
it's like 10 times even more stirring.
Yeah, definitely.
So, bravo. So really, you can see how arts can really move people
Yes.
to change and to address all these issues that people somehow maybe overlook and don't pay attention to.
Yes, you know, if they use really sensitive artists in the peace negotiation, or maybe when they have a peace negotiation, they should let these handicapable artists perform. Maybe it will soften their heart and put them in a framework to say, hey, we have to end this. We can't keep on hurting people this way, especially children.
I mean, before we close the second segment, let me just remind people about Band Aid and USA for Africa that called attention to the famine. And before that, people were oblivious to what was happening in Africa. But when all these singers came out with these beautiful songs, then boom, immediately.
That's right.
Aid and assistance, and people were focused on the issue. Maybe with this kind of approach, this could be really one of the game changers.
With the BOL now,
yes.
It has to be ratified. We have to let people accept it, to be more open-minded, how everybody can cooperate, and finally really end violence. I mean, this can be a component, and we were glad that when we had the forum held in the Senate, we had the support of the Senate spouses. We even have an interfaith, intercultural forum there. A Manila Declaration was forged, and all of the contents of what has to be done to apply dynamically the arts in governance, if it is really followed, my God.
Absolutely.
You know, the UN has a blue helmet army. We hope that through us, initiated by the Philippines, a creative army of artists, teachers, can be the rainbow army.
Very good. Mrs. Alvarez, we have paused for a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the environment, another major area for discussion. We'll talk about sustainable development, and we'll also talk about how arts can help in that respect. So guys, stick around because more of UN Month, Artists for Peace, and Sustainable Development Goals when Global Village returns.
Hello, I'm Merlijn Twaalfhoven and I'm a composer of music. And in my project I brought different cultures together in Amsterdam, but I also worked across Europe in very poor neighborhoods, and in the Middle East, for example in refugee camps, places of conflict and big challenges. I could see how the big changes of today sometimes get stuck in power structures, in politics, in frustrations, in the way we structure our world. And I became convinced that this time actually needs the artist mindset. It needs beauty, play and imagination. Artists can show a fresh and inspiring perspective on the world around us. With play we can experiment, develop. We can fail sometimes, but always learn and find a way forward. And then with imagination we can really picture a future, and we can imagine what it feels like, how it looks like, what is the experience of a way to a better world. This is what the SDGs need. That's why I present what art can do. A practical method that connects artists to the big environmental and social issues of today. We show what art can do for the SDGs. We connect artists to local and small initiatives and to the citizens. And we share an open source method that really creates wind under the wings of all those artistic and entrepreneurial change makers in Amsterdam.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Cunanan. Tonight's topic is UN Month, Artists for Peace and Sustainable Development Goals. And joining me still are Cecil Guidotta Alvarez, Director, Earth Savers, UNESCO Artists for Peace, and Maricor Book, UN Youth Advisory Board Member representing handicapable people. No, we're not, PWDs no longer no longer allowed in the show. All right. So that video we showed Ms. Alvarez and Maricor was a famous Dutch composer named Merlijn Twaalfhoven. And he said essentially what we've been talking about for the past two segments about how arts is used now to pursue the SDGs. And he said something interesting. He said talked about localizing the SDGs because, bringing it down to the community level and engaging everyone.
the situation, the condition that they can connect with, relate to, and vicariously or have a real experience with what they see.
Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes to the SDGs, we really have to thank Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General. He was really one of the
and it's
prime
being
movers.
pursued now by the new Secretary General, which is Mr. Guterres from Portugal.
Yes, and Mr. Ban had Ban is his surname, Ban Ki-moon. He had a very famous line which has been adopted by the COPs, Conference of Parties, Climate Change Conference. He said, "We don't have Plan B because there is no Planet B."
That's right.
So it resonates.
It's survival.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an issue. We want to live a world where our children and grandchildren and generations to come would still have a womb for nourishing their lives. But if we allow this destruction of the environment, we're really going to annihilate us. It's as bad as, worse even than the atomic bomb.
And we can see it everywhere.
Yeah,
the typhoons that hit us,
it's a
that hit
close
America.
encounter.
Yes.
We have a close encounter with this. We know it, and we've got to act. And the SDGs is really a good framework. And really, as you said, the twin challenge for survival is stop wars and end or mitigate climate change.
You know, Ms. Alvarez, your husband, Senator Harrison Alvarez, is really involved in it as well as you.
Yes, that's why we got involved with the Earth Savers.
Are you optimistic about the future regarding climate change?
Well, there are people who are saying, "Oh, doomsday is coming." But
a lot of people.
Yeah, but I'm an optimist. I believe that if we really persevere, if we can really motivate everybody to understand the situation, the crisis, and we have to act and respond to it. And humanitarian-wise, especially, have a memory of the pitiful situation of refugees. We don't want to have more refugees.
Yes.
It's causing more wars, as a matter of fact. With all these border problems and all migration.
And waste resources, precious resources.
And we're destroying it, we're polluting it, so that it causes us all the diseases and the harm. And we will end our supply of protein if we keep on polluting the oceans and killing all of the animals. We have to feel, we have to care, we have to share, and it's arts that can touch your heart and really recharge your memory and your conscience that, hey, I have to leave something. I care for my son, for my grandchildren. I care for my great-grandchildren and on to the 7th generation, which is an indigenous people's, let's say, concern or wisdom. Caring for the 7th generation, not just the now, but thinking about it. And October is also Indigenous Peoples Month here in the Philippines. Yes. And it is also the month where the Philippines, with Spain, Mexico, and other Latin Americans, we were able to secure a UNESCO resolution for Dia del Galion. And the Dia del Galion, which was so important for trade and cultural exchange 250 years ago, can have a reprise in our contemporary society by doing these exchanges of good practices and collaboration and partnership to save the world. It's heroic to leave a nourishing womb for our children.
It's interesting, Mrs. Alvarez, that you mentioned indigenous peoples have that ingrained in them.
Wisdom.
Very much so, the generational concern, which I think we all have that, but I think they have it. It's more, they feel it more. I don't know, maybe it's because
we forget it.
We do forget it.
We have disconnected ourselves, you know, from our roots.
Yes.
And this brilliant 7th generation wisdom. I'm not going to do anything now that will hurt my children and grandchildren up to the 7th generation. I'm not going to do anything now that will hurt the memory of my parents, grandparents, and ancestors back from the 7th generation. So you will protect, you will care, you will share. And that's the value that we must ingrain in every citizen, young and old.
Yeah, interesting. Maricor, in your case, what is the UN Youth Advisory Board doing to promote the issue of climate change with the youth and try to make them more aware of the problems and challenges?
Actually, our main responsibility is to give advice to United Nations country team. So, regarding with the climate change, we are ensuring that UN has its program regarding reducing the effect of climate change. And through arts, of course.
Do you
Just
think
garbage recycling and composting.
Yes.
If every young person really doesn't have this throwaway and lack of discipline, wait until you find the correct spot to throw it and not just throw it in the water body or in the street, that would be it. If they, as young people, can even tell their parents who might be involved in disastrous mining, illegal logging,
So being a good
then
example.
they can
That's
change
true.
minds.
That's true. Maybe the youth can conscientize the elders.
Yes.
No, if
Be a role model to the,
We're pushing that the 4 Ps, in fact, we told it to Congresswoman Cayetano, who's concerned about persons with disabilities, that the 4 Ps should include, let's say, a concern for families that have persons with disabilities. And it's not included yet in the framework.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I hope some progress
I hope
is done on that issue.
Brings the issue further to expand. I think the president has mentioned that they are reviewing or looking forward, especially now. They're under the budget hearings. I think
Very important.
it should be the moment to say, hey, this is the budget of the 4 Ps. How come there is no consideration for persons with disabilities?
Yes.
Or even for families that are indigenous, to make sure that somebody from the family of PWDs or indigenous peoples or those who have out-of-school youth children can be given a chance for education. It is the key for unlocking the gridlock of underdevelopment.
And getting them engaged and make them, contribute to society. I mean, like in past days when people would write them off, essentially. It's saying, it's...
I mean, the general thinking for PWDs is, oh, you pity them, you give them tokenism.
You just stay at home.
Just stay at home.
Stay at home.
Yeah.
And they think that they don't have the capability, yet God is wise. Everybody has talent.
As we can see from the Earth Savers Dream Ensemble, of which Maricor is a prominent member of, and contributing to this fight against climate change and for peace, and of course the SDGs and all the issues that they are trying to address. Ms. Alvarez, before we close, let's talk quickly about what you will be doing and you and Senator Alvarez will be doing in Poland for the 24th United Nations Climate Change Conference.
Well, in Poland, regularly since there was the Rio Plus 20 and in Doha, my husband has been running or chairing official side event. It's generally an interfaith, intercultural dialogue, South-South, so that the best practices from Asia, Africa, and Latin America are entered. We just don't look at the West as the means for technology transfer. For instance, even now, we're talking about a great technology in Argentina, where if only government will listen, there is a way to eliminate waste totally in airports and seaports, and also make sure that there are no drugs released out, because there is a convention which says all the things. I hope people are more open to technology transfer, even coming from the South.
Well, we certainly wish Senator Alvarez luck in this next foray in December in Poland. And Ms. Alvarez, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. Quickly, maybe a short message to viewers. Let's start with Maricor.
For all the people who don't have any disabilities, use your senses wisely. And for those people who have disabilities, don't use your disability as an excuse. Kasi laging dapat go beyond the limits tayo, because if we have, lagi kong sinasabi, if we have these opportunities, wag natin sasayangin.
Bravo, bravo. Ms. Alvarez?
Well, I hope, since we're a UNESCO Artist for Peace and we have been given the privilege of initiating this peace movement, not by force, but by art, we hope through the International Theatre Institute, which has more than 100 member nations, and through the Goodwill Ambassadors and Artists for Peace under UNESCO, we can forge, we can harness, we can mobilize, as we said, a creative army of artist teachers that will really be the force for education, for social transformation, for really accomplishing the vision of the SDGs so that we can fight poverty and achieve peace in the world, that peace can prevail on earth. And that's our prayer and our hope. October is also Holy Rosary Month. The family that prays together stays together. And Mama Mary has been so, let's say, concerned about the Philippines. Let's keep on calling on her to make our country safe, secure, healthy, peaceful, and sustainably developed.
Very well said. Thank you very much, Mrs. Alvarez.
Thank you.
Good luck to you and Senator Alvarez in Poland for the 24th Conference of Parties.
And you'll join us there,
I will
not
be there in
just
Poland
as
as
a
well.
media person,
I will
but
be
as
there.
a consul that has been involved in cultural exchanges.
Thank you, madam. I will surely be there. And Maricor, of course, congratulations on all your accomplishments, and keep up the good work. You're very inspiring.
Thank you.
Inspiration to us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Very informative on UN Month, Artists for Peace, and Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Join us again next week here in Global Village, and let us take you around the world. Till then, you all have a good evening.